Mason's fist slammed against the steering wheel as he sped through the rain-soaked streets. Clara sat beside him, trembling, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Behind them, headlights from Verina's hired men cut through the darkness like predatory eyes. "They're following us," Clara whispered, her voice breaking. Mason's jaw tightened. "I know. Hold on." He took a sharp turn, tires screeching against wet asphalt. The chase was on. And this was only the beginning of a war that would tear apart lies buried for over 2 decades. If you missed how we got here, go watch part 1 right now, link in the description. And if you want to see how this ends, hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss what happens next. 3 hours earlier, Mason had received the call that changed everything. Elena's voice had been frantic, barely coherent through her sobs. "Mason, you have to come. Now. I found something about Clara's father. Something my mother's been hiding for 20 years. He'd arrived at the old chapel within minutes, Ethan right behind him. Elena stood in the shadows, clutching a worn leather folder like it was a lifeline. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it. "Elena, what's going on?" Mason demanded, his voice sharp with urgency. She thrust the folder at him. "Just look. Please." Mason opened it. Inside were photographs, letters, and documents, all yellowed with age. The first photograph stopped his heart. A younger Verina stood beside a tall black man with kind eyes. Between them was a little girl with curly black hair and hazel eyes that he'd recognize anywhere. "Clara. Who is this man?" Mason's voice was barely a whisper. Elena's tears fell freely now. "David Richardson. He was Clara's father. And my mother destroyed him." Mason's blood ran cold. "What do you mean destroyed?" Elena couldn't look at him. "My mother was in love with him. But he married her younger sister, Isabel. They had Clara together. When Isabel died in a car accident, my mother saw her chance. She convinced David that Clara would have a better life with her wealth, education, opportunities he couldn't provide while grieving and struggling financially. So she took Clara," Mason said, fury building in his chest. "Not just took her," Elena choked out. "She made sure David could never get her back. She used her connections to destroy his business, his reputation. She spread rumors that he was unstable, unfit. When he tried to fight for custody, she had lawyers bury him in legal battles he couldn't afford." Ethan stepped forward, his voice tight. "And Clara? What did she tell Clara?" Elena's voice broke completely. "That her father abandoned her. That he didn't want her. That she was lucky my mother even kept her." Mason's fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. "Where is David now?" The silence that followed was deafening. "He died," Elena whispered. 5 years after my mother took Clara. Heart attack, the records say. But I found these." She pulled out a stack of letters, the paper worn soft from age. "He wrote to Clara every week for 5 years. Begged my mother to let him see his daughter. Every single letter was returned unopened. He died thinking Clara believed he'd abandoned her." Mason's vision blurred with rage. He opened one of the letters, and David's words pierced through him like knives. Asterisk, "My dearest Clara, I know you're too young to read this now, but someday you will. I want you to know that not a day goes by that I don't think of you. Your aunt says you're happy, that you're thriving, but I need to see you. I need to hold you. Please, sweetheart, never doubt that your daddy loves you more than life itself." Asterisk. Mason's voice came out raw. "Clara needs to know. If you tell her, my mother will retaliate," Elena warned. "She'll destroy you both." Mason looked at her, his blue eyes blazing. "Then let her try. Because I'm done watching Clara live in the shadow of lies." That's when his phone had rung. Clara's terrified voice filled his ear. "Mason, something's wrong. There are men outside the guest house. They're trying to break in." And now here they were, racing through the night with Verina's men on their trail. Mason took another sharp turn, finally losing the cars behind them. He pulled into an underground parking garage, killed the engine, and turned to Clara. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face. "What's happening? Why are they after me?" Mason reached for her hand, his voice gentle despite the storm raging inside him. "Clara, there's something you need to know. Something about your father." Her breath hitched. "What about him?" He pulled out his phone, showing her the photograph Elena had given him. "This is your father." His name was David Richardson. Clara stared at the image, her whole body going rigid. That's me. I remember this. I remember him." Her voice broke. "But Madame Verena said he left me. She said he didn't want me." "She lied," Mason said, and the words hung in the air like a death sentence. Clara's face crumpled. "What?" Mason showed her the letters, his voice thick with emotion. "He fought for you, Clara. Every single day. He wrote you letters, tried to see you. But Verena kept him away. She destroyed his life to keep you under her control." Clara's hands trembled as she read her father's words. Each sentence was a dagger to the heart she'd built around herself for protection. "He loved me," she whispered. "He wanted me. More than anything," Mason confirmed. The dam broke. Clara sobbed, years of pain and abandonment pouring out in waves. "She took him from me. She made me believe I wasn't wanted. She made me believe I was nothing." Mason pulled her into his arms, holding her as she shattered. "You were never nothing. You were always everything. Your father knew it. And I know it too." She pulled back, searching his face through tear-blurred eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care so much about someone like me? Someone like you?" Mason's voice was fierce. "Clara, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You survived years of cruelty and somehow kept your kindness intact. That's not nothing. That's extraordinary." "I don't feel extraordinary," she whispered. "I feel broken." "Then let me help you put the pieces back together," Mason said softly. "Let me fight for you the way your father would have if he'd had the chance." Something passed between them then, something electric, undeniable. Clara's breath caught as Mason's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Mason confessed. "But we'll be scared together." Before either could say more, Ethan knocked on the window. "We need to move. They'll find us soon." Mason nodded, starting the engine. But as they pulled back onto the road, Clara grabbed his hand. "Thank you," she said simply. "Don't thank me yet," Mason replied. "We still have to face Verena." The next morning, Mason stood outside the Harlow mansion, Ethan and Elena flanking him. The air was thick with tension as they walked through the front doors. Verena waited in the sitting room, Claudia beside her, both wearing expressions of cold fury. "Mr. Hale," Verena said icily. "I don't recall inviting you." Mason dropped a folder on the table between them. "I'm not here for pleasantries. I'm here to end your lies." Verena's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "David Richardson," Mason said, and watched Verena's face go pale. "Clara's father. The man you destroyed because you couldn't have him." Claudia stepped forward. "You have no proof of anything." Mason pulled out the letters, the photographs, the legal documents Elena had found. "I have everything. Proof that you manipulated guardianship laws. Proof that you intercepted David's letters to Clara. Testimonies from people who watched you systematically destroy a grieving father's life." Verena's hands trembled with rage. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Mason's voice was deadly calm. "You were in love with David. When he chose your sister instead, you couldn't stand it. And when your sister died, you saw your chance. You took Clara, not out of love, but out of spite. You wanted to erase David from her life so completely that she'd never know how much he loved her." "That's a lie." Verena's composure cracked. "Is it?" Elena stepped forward, her voice stronger than Mason had ever heard it. "Because I found your diary, Mother. The one you kept locked away. I read every word. You wrote about how much you hated Isabel for taking David. You wrote about how satisfying it was to watch him beg for his daughter. You wrote about how you hoped he'd die thinking Clara hated him." Verena's face went white. "Elena, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "You're not the woman I thought you were. You're a monster." Claudia moved toward Elena. "How dare you speak to Mother that way?" "Stay back," Ethan warned, stepping between them. Verena stood, her voice venomous. "You think you can threaten me?" "I have power, connections, lawyers." "And I have the truth," Mason interrupted. "Which one do you think matters more?" "Because I'm prepared to take every piece of evidence I have to the media. To the courts. To anyone who'll listen. By the time I'm done, the entire world will know what kind of person you really are. Verina's laugh was bitter. And what about Clara? Do you think exposing me will give her back her father? Do you think it'll erase the years she spent believing she was unloved? Mason's jaw tightened. No, but it'll give her the truth. And it'll make sure you never hurt her again. You're in love with her, Verina said suddenly, her eyes gleaming with malice. That's what this is really about. You want to play hero to a broken girl who'll never be good enough for someone like you. Mason's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Clara is worth 1,000 of you. And if you ever speak about her like that again, I'll make sure you lose everything. Verina's smile was cruel. We'll see about that. That night, Clara sat in the garden of the guest house. David's letters spread around her like fallen leaves. Each word was a revelation, a piece of her father she'd never known. Mason found her there, her face illuminated by moonlight and tears. I thought he didn't want me, she said without looking up. My whole life, I thought I wasn't enough. That I was a burden. Mason sat beside her. You were never a burden. You were loved. Deeply. She turned to him, her hazel eyes swimming with emotion. How do I live with this? Knowing she stole my father from me? Knowing I believed her lies? You live by refusing to let her win, Mason said gently. You live by taking back your story. Your father fought for you until his last breath. Don't let Verina's cruelty define who you are. Clara's voice broke. I don't know how to do that. Mason took her hand. Then let me show you. Let me fight alongside you. Let me be the person your father would want in your corner. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Why do you care so much? Mason's answer was simple, honest, devastating. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to care about something more than money or status or reputation. You make me want to be better. And I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and fierce. You barely know me, Clara whispered. I know enough, Mason said. I know you're kind when the world gave you every reason to be cruel. I know you're strong even when you feel broken. I know that when you smile, it's the most honest thing I've ever seen. And I know I want to spend every day making sure you never doubt your worth again. Clara's tears fell freely. I'm scared. So am I, Mason admitted. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the best things in life are the ones that scare us. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. And in that moment, surrounded by her father's love letters and Mason's unwavering presence, Clara began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be loved after all. But Verina wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. And when she struck back, it would be with a vengeance that threatened to destroy everything Mason and Clara had built. What happens when Verina unleashes her final, most devastating weapon? Will Mason and Clara's love survive the storm? Drop a comment below with your predictions, smash that like button if you're rooting for them, and subscribe so you don't miss part 3, because trust me, what comes next will leave you speechless. See you in the next one.